You're alone in your car or in the kitchen, washing the same dish for the fourth time. And somewhere between one thought and the next, you hear it. Your own voice, out loud, explaining something. Maybe narrating a task. Maybe replaying a conversation from 3 days ago, finally saying the thing you should have said. You look around. Nobody heard. And for a second you wonder, is something wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. What's happening is something far more interesting. Today we're going inside the psychology of people who talk to themselves. Why their brain works this way, what research actually says it does for them, and why this habit, so often treated as something embarrassing to hide, is one of the most quietly powerful things a mind can do. Psychologists have a name for it, private speech, and it starts much earlier than you'd think. In the 1930s, a developmental psychologist named Vygotsky watched children solve problems, puzzles, drawings, games, and he noticed something everyone else dismissed as background noise. The kids never stopped talking, not to each other, to themselves. Okay, that goes there. No, not there, here. Adults thought it was random, a phase they would grow out of. Vygotsky thought it was the most important thing happening in that room. He described private speech as a bridge between social language and inner thought. Before a child can think silently, they think out loud. They borrow the voice of a parent, a teacher, someone who guides them, and they replay it until it becomes internal, until it becomes theirs. Most people assume that bridge eventually closes, that by adulthood, all thinking moves fully inside, quiet, efficient, invisible. For some people, that never fully happens. The thinking stays partly external. The voice stays audible. And that is not a failure. It is a specific configuration of how a mind chose to organize itself. Not every brain is built to process the world entirely from the inside, and not every brain needs to be. When you talk to yourself, your brain runs what cognitive scientists call self-directed speech. The mechanics of it are more complex than most people realize. Self-talk is not just thinking with extra steps. When you speak out loud, your brain activates two processes simultaneously: production and perception. You are generating language and hearing it at the same time. That creates a second processing loop, an echo that gives your mind a second pass at the same information. Think of it this way. If you write a message and send it, you read it once. If you read it out loud afterward, you catch things you missed the first time. The content did not change. The format did. And that format shift changes what your brain notices. Self-talk also directly activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, attention, and impulse control. When you narrate a task out loud, you are not just reminding yourself. You are giving your executive function a script to follow. You are converting a vague intention into something trackable and concrete. Researchers call this cognitive scaffolding, a temporary external structure that holds a task together while your mind works through it. The scaffolding comes down once the building can stand on its own. People who talk to themselves are not working around their brain. They are using a tool the brain specifically built for heavy lifting. Here is where it gets personal. Not everyone does this at the same rate. The difference is not usually about intelligence or personality type. It is about what a person grew up inside of. Many people who rely heavily on self-talk grew up in environments where their thoughts were not reflected back to them, where they spoke and no one really listened, where they felt something and had no one nearby to help them name it, hold it, or make sense of it. So they became their own witness. They learned to externalize the internal because the internal was too heavy to carry alone, and no one was there to help carry it with them. Self-talk in that context becomes a form of self-parenting, a voice that says, "I hear you. What do you need right now? Let us figure this out together. Except both voices belong to the same person. There is a specific kind of grief in understanding that. Realizing you learned to keep yourself company because you had to. That the voice walking you through things, the patient one, the one that narrates and organizes and tries to make things make sense, built itself out of necessity. But it is also one of the most resilient things a nervous system can produce. You did not shut down, you built a system. There is a harder version of this. The same voice that guides you can turn against you. Self-talk is not always kind. Sometimes it replays the wrong scenes, rehearses disasters, narrates failure before it even arrives. Psychologists distinguish between two types: instructional self-talk, focused, constructive, task-based, and evaluative self-talk, emotional, often critical, and sometimes relentless. People who grew up without being heard do not always get to choose which voice shows up. The narrator they built can be warm or brutal, sometimes both in the same afternoon. If the voice in your head keeps running a bad scene on repeat, that is not weakness. That is a nervous system that never received the signal it was safe to stop watching. A guard that was never given permission to stand down. The first step is not to silence it. It is to understand what it is still trying to protect you from. People who talk to themselves get called strange, scattered, too much in their heads. What they actually are is self-aware in a way that does not sit quietly inside a skull. Their mind is too active, too relational, too hungry for clarity to let thoughts pass without naming them. A thought that drifts through in silence stays vague. A thought spoken out loud becomes something you can examine, question, decide to keep or release. If you talk to yourself, you are not falling apart. You are paying attention to yourself, which, for a lot of people, is the hardest thing in the world to do. It might be the first time someone tells them directly, "That is not weird." That is just a mind that refuses to leave itself behind. And if someone you know narrates their own life out loud, send this to them. If this gave you language for something you have felt but never been able to explain, subscribe now. Because on this channel, we do not just talk about psychology, we use it to understand ourselves clearly enough to finally change.